Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy here, and we are on the road to WrestleMania. And from the way it looks, it doesn't look that good so far. Obviously, you know, Roman versus Brock is happening, and then Charlotte versus Ronda is happening. But what else? We're gonna have to find out. But am I the only one that thinks WrestleMania over these past years have kind of sucked? Like, they haven't been good. I don't remember much from it. But there is one WrestleMania in mind that I do remember very fondly of. And that is WrestleMania 31. I know many people will agree with me on this, that WrestleMania 31 was probably the last best WrestleMania. Everything from that show that I remember in 2015 was just amazing. I want to go over what made WrestleMania 31 so good. What made WrestleMania 31 one of the best WrestleManias of all time? Well, let's get into it. Well, the first thing we have is the main event of WrestleMania, which was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Obviously, this was the start of the Roman push, and many people wanted Brock to win because people didn't want Roman to win. And then, to me, I actually enjoyed the match. I loved it. I loved when Brock, but that match was just so good. I enjoyed that main event. I know many people say the main event sucked, but looking back at it, I just loved it. Like, the crowd going wild, cheering for Lesnar, who was a heel at the time, and cheering for Roman, who was a face. It was just so good. I think, to me, that's one of their most memorable matches they've ever had. But who won at the end? Who won at the end? And that is what we got to jump into next. The Money in the Bank cash-in that changed the Money in the Bank contract. Seth Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania was just so good. The first main, oh man, that cash-in was just so good. It was a perfect time to cash in. Literally the perfect time. And that's why, Rollins beating Roman and Brock, that was a good move. And then Seth Rollins had one of my favorite title reigns. Not the best, but one of my favorite title reigns he's had. But again, that Money in the Bank cash-in was one of my favorites. I still remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was back in 2015. And goddamn, I feel old, 2015. But we still got a lot more to discuss. And then the next thing we have is the opener for WrestleMania 31, which was the Intercontinental title ladder match with Wade Barrett, R-Truth, Dean Ambrose, Daniel Bryan, Luke Harper, Stardust, and Dolph Ziggler. And oh my god, that Intercontinental title ladder match was just so good. There were so many spots we remember, like Luke Harper powerbombing Dean Ambrose on the ladder. Like, there was just so many good spots on that match that I really enjoyed. That match was so good, and then that was the start of Daniel Bryan with the Intercontinental title, but sadly we didn't get to see much from it because he had to get rid of it because of injury. But the match itself, it was so good. We were thinking when Dolph and Daniel were at the top, like, who's gonna get it? But then Daniel Bryan won it. Like, to me, that is one And then we have Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton, and again, this match was alright. It was pretty good. I don't remember much from it, but the one moment that made that special was the iconic RKO, where Rollins was headed for a curb stomp and then hit the RKO out of nowhere. Now that is a perfect example of an RKO out of nowhere. Like, to me, that RKO saved the whole match. Like, literally, if that RKO never happened, I feel like that match would have been alright. Like, it would have been eh. Again, like, that RKO was just so memorable. Like, the height Rollins got, that was like one of the first times we ever seen that. And I think that was the first time they added that in 2K16 with that special move with the RKO. That was a pretty dope moment. Now we're headed into Triple H versus Sting, which to me, I love that match so much. I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. But god dang, man. Triple H versus Sting was so good. From start to finish, it's like, it felt so good seeing like the leader of DX versus the member of NWO clash at Mania. And then, you know, NWO versus DX, you know, NWO came out, DX came out. It was just so much fun seeing those two teams collide. even though it would have been better if they did it in their prime, but it was a little bit too late. And then the better part is that it was Sting's Mania debut, like his in-ring debut, which was really special. But he shockingly didn't win. I really preferred Sting to win, but it was a good match nonetheless. Like, Sting and Triple H, they killed it at Mania. And to me, I feel like that's one of the underappreciated matches at Mania. And now we're moving on to Miss UFC. We move on to Ronda Rousey, who at the time wasn't competing for WWE. She was just a guest at attendance. And then, you know, the segment with The Rock, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, that was so good. But, like, to me, that was so good seeing Ronda Rousey and Stephanie McMahon. Like, that was a little tease of what we're going to see 3 years later at Mania 34. Like, oh, man, it could have been cooler if we saw The Rock and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie at Mania 34, but we got Kurt. To me, that was one of my favorite Ronda Rousey appearances. Like, we never expected to see Ronda Rousey step in the WWE ring. But she did. She didn't have the match, but it was a fun segment nonetheless. And then the final thing here is the start of the US Open Challenge. Obviously, Mania 31, it didn't start the US Open Challenge, but that was the time where John Cena versus Rusev had a rivalry, which to me, I personally enjoyed. I love that rivalry. So then Cena went on to beat Rusev for the US title, and then John Cena started the US Open Challenge where it would be defended every week. And that was crazy, man. I loved, like, to me, this match wasn't great. It wasn't good, but it was something so special when John Cena won the US title once again. Because the start of the US Open Challenge, making newer stars, like, I would enjoy watching it every week. And plus, it was the debut of Kevin Owens, the US Open Challenge. That's what started it. And, man, it was just a good time when John Cena was US champion. That was at the time where the US title and Intercontinental title were so important. And now look at it now. No one cares about each title. And it's such a shame because those two titles are very important. But WWE just doesn't care. So yeah, to me, those are what the special things I remember about WrestleMania 31 and why it was so memorable and so good. Obviously, I did miss Undertaker and Bray Wyatt, but I feel like the rivalry was more better than the match. But again, I did enjoy the feud for Bray Wyatt and Undertaker. But to me, that's why WrestleMania 31 was so special, and I think everyone can agree with these moments. Rollins' cash-in, the iconic RKO, Ronda Rousey's appearance, Triple H versus Sting, like, all these moments are just so good, and WWE can learn about the match card. Like, the Mania wasn't like 8 hours long. It felt short, and it went by quick, and I remember, like, it was just so good. Like, it gave a lot of stars that were in the undercard a chance. Like, it gave them so much of a chance. And I feel like that's what WWE can do because they have such a perfect roster to make a good Mania, but they just don't try. And to me, I feel like WrestleMania 31 will always be my favorite WrestleMania of all time. I know there has been more WrestleManias that are way better than this, but I just remember my 13-year-old self or 12-year-old self watching this, and I'm like, this is amazing. And I will always say WrestleMania 31 will always have a place in my heart. I got a little bit too carried away there, a little too emotional. But yeah, that is all my thoughts on WrestleMania 31. What did you guys think about WrestleMania 31? Was it amazing? Was it boring? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you guys give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And turn on post notifications if you haven't turned on when I upload a new video. And we're on the road to WrestleMania. And guys, we are almost at 1,000 subscribers. Just click the subscribe button. It's down there. But thank you all for watching. And I'll see y'all later.